first a rather general question. Where do you draw your inspiration from when it comes to creating music or art?
Like what I listened to growing up, I think it's all like a storage of things. I can't pinpoint it, but.
And what did you listen to growing up?
What you listened to growing up in Cairo, like the basic traditional Egyptian music.
And popular music as well?
Yes, mostly. Yes, mostly very popular things.
For me, of course, it's music. It's always like a source of inspiration, but also basically everything from the daily life, any visual thing or any sound I hear could be an inspiration. So it's really very broad. I cannot decide that this is my inspiration and this is not. I think everything influences me consciously and subconsciously as well.
And is there any musical style that you feel at home in the most? Both in terms of creating music, but also in terms of listening to music?
I have a problem with defining styles, so maybe something that I cannot define basically, because this is a bit my music, like it's improvised, but at the same time it's not totally improvised, and it has some classical elements, but it's not classical. So yeah, I think in the least defined frame, this is where I feel more comfortable.
I feel comfortable singing mostly, and then everything else complements.
The two of you are, let's say, singer-songwriters or composer-performers, and I feel that in Germany, at least within the academic music business, it's getting more and more, but it's still not that common to be a composer and to be a performer as well. Is that taken for granted in Lebanon, that you create your own music and that you do what you have written? Or would you say this is an individual thing?
I think it's both, but also historically, like this image of the composer does not exist in the Arab world, like as the composer of something. It's always also the interpretation of the singer or the instrumentalist that makes the piece what it is. So, for example, you might have the same, correct me if I'm wrong, but you might have the same song interpreted by so many people, but what sticks is the one interpreted by one person. So it's kind of intertwined, like it's not composer versus performer. It's always just a mode of expression, and that's how I see it, and I think it's like we don't have this definition of a composer unless the composer is in the more classical, like Western classical frame. And also I think it has to do with means as well, like finding someone to perform your music. It's not like there are many ensembles, or so everyone is kind of do it yourself, and that kind of logic.
And the three of you are involved in the project Voice Affairs here at ICLA. And you, Panos, you are producing a video installation for it, right?
Yes. So basically, yeah, I'm not a musician. I'm a image maker, a filmmaker, and what I'm doing is basically interweaving a film into the performances that are gonna go live tomorrow. So it's a film that is in between the live performances themselves. So it's a concert film, but it also has a lot of pre-recorded sessions that are going to come in and out, but also be mixed with the concert itself.
So is the film still in the process of being created now?
Yeah, in a way. I mean, everything that was filmed outside of the concert hall is already here, but the film is going to be kind of immersed into the concert film itself. So in a way, yes, but also no. Tomorrow it will be produced tomorrow live.
And in general, are you used to be working together with musicians or with artists from other fields?
Musicians a lot actually, and this is kind of how I'm here, because I had worked with several of the musicians that are here, like Aya and Sharif, and I've also made concert films, several ones, but also sort of music documentaries. And music videos, so I have a kind of an experience working with musicians a lot actually.
Youmna, you are an oud player, so the oud is, let's say, a traditional lute. In which way do you play it when you play it?
I think my playing technique is not very traditional. Like I'm very aware of the tradition that it comes from, but I don't use it as such. I just imagine it as a box of sound, and I try to think of it as a sound machine, not an instrument to be played in a specific way. So to answer you, I play it more in an experimental way.
And when you are working here at Eclat with Neue Vocalsolisten, you will be also performing, right?
Yes.
What are you doing together with them?
So basically, I will be behind the electronics and the oud, but I won't be playing the oud. But I won't reveal more than that.
Aya, how did you compose for the Vocalsolisten, if we can call it composing?
It was a gradual process, for sure. It wasn't done in the typical sense of composition where you write a score for the musicians. I picked a song. The composition is based on a song from the 20s, and the melody is already there, but I had no idea how much the singers can interpret the melody, how much they can give, because it's a completely different melodic system from what they're used to, and it's not equal temperament 12 note scale. So there was a lot of intuition in it. It's not very rigid, because this is the thing about I say oriental singing. It's not rigid, and the beauty of it lies in the very fact that it's not rigid, and the fact that you bend it according to how you feel and according to each interpreter or singer. So mostly I was working with them. I was just giving them things. I was working a lot with my voice, because there was no written score, so I would sing something, or I would give like a certain melody and ask them to react in a certain frame. So there was a bit of trial and error, and also a bit of ping-ponging. They give me back something, I give them something, I give back, until we reached a form that we were happy with.
And when you are performing in the, let's say in the music scene in Beirut, who is your audience there?
People who are interested in that kind of music. It's not a huge audience. It's a very particular audience. It's kind of the same as, let's say, Eclat has a very particular audience. Also in Beirut, like what we do has a particular audience. There's people who are interested in things that do not necessarily sound normal to them, or just people who are curious, and it mostly revolves around a festival, the Irtijal festival in Beirut. It has its audience, and these are our audience, like if we perform outside of Irtijal.
And is it hard to work as an artist in general in Beirut? Because you get so little financial support. Can you make a living, or do you have to do something else?
I haven't managed to make a living from my concerts, so I do other jobs.
It's already hard to be an artist, I guess, anywhere, but in Beirut specifically, yeah, there's no public funding. I mean, or if there is, it's very little. But there are ways to fund one's work through institutions, kind of like non-profit, non-governmental institutions, but who are very limited, and there's obviously way more artists and way more funds needed that they can provide. And on the other hand, yeah, I guess all of us here, I do commissioned work. Besides like doing my own visual work or my own films, I do films for other people. I also teach. Yeah, so these are kind of
So that typical kind of patchwork existence. And are there a lot of young artists going abroad and never coming back, or
yes.
would you rather say that, yeah?
Yeah, they're coming to Germany, usually, to Berlin. I mean, because the facilitation that is given to artists to move here.
I mean, now, yes, for sure, people, if they can go find opportunities, I mean, even now, like, opportunities for artists are very limited, I think. But, yes, since always, I think people leave and maybe come back, but then they leave again, because it's a small country, and at some point you would need to expose your work somewhere else, I think. I don't know.
As the three of you have been abroad already, can you say, is there something particular or something special about the contemporary music scene in Lebanon? Something that you can't find anywhere else?
I think like what's very remarkable in Lebanon is this DIY kind of approach to things, like really from nothing. Irtijal Festival started with maybe 3 people in the audience watching, like, I don't know, 20 years ago, and now they have full audiences and everyone waits for so yeah, and like I even remember how long ago, 12 years ago, you know, like we just would go to this bar and do gigs from nothing. I don't have any musical background. I could just play a bit of guitar and yeah, let's throw a gig, you know. So there wasn't even any reference or any standards to follow, so we were just throwing ourselves, and then it kind of grew from that very organically, and I think this is what really makes it unique.
Yeah, I guess because the scene is very small, so we all push each other in a way that you don't usually see outside. There is competition, but there is no hate. There is no on the contrary, it's full of support, because when you push another musician in Lebanon, you're actually pushing, or in Egypt, or like in one of the regions, you're pushing the whole scene. It's not just individuals, you know. And because we're fighting to actually do anything, so we help out each other a lot to keep the scene going in a way that is not present in Europe, because in Europe the scene already exists, you know, without this human effort.
I see, and you all are fighting for the same thing, so to say. Yeah.
Also, one important thing is the non-existence of established structures that actually decide what kind of aesthetics or things that musicians would fall into. You know, like in an established scene, you have kind of the aesthetics already established, and musicians just stick to that scene. But in Beirut, at least, we don't have these. Like everyone is doing something different from the other, but we're just together because we're in Beirut. So, you know, so it's just the space that's bringing us together. But aesthetically, it's not like one way of doing things.
So I can imagine that people then are open-minded to any kind of artistic approach within contemporary music.
The audience, you mean?
Yeah, probably the audience, but also the artists themselves.
Yeah, I think the audience is very open. I mean, it is a limited audience, but it is an open-minded audience. And I think the scene wouldn't have grown if the audience wasn't accepting of the what was presented. And the example of Irtijal is the festival is like, I think, the best example.
Yeah, I think the audience are hungry actually, because there is not so much of sort of alternative ways of like approaching music or art in general. So this limited, even though the scene is limited, they are very present, right? If whenever there's something, they would the same, even if it's the same people, they would be present like each time because they are hungry for. There's a lack of that. And you're asking about the audience before. I mean, not everyone, but a big chunk of it are cultural workers themselves. So I don't know, like artists or academics or other musicians or different types of like creative or cultural producers. So there is that, and then you have the you have like the other side of like art in like exhibitions in Beirut, and you'll have the musicians present there. And I don't know if this is common to everywhere, but there's a lot of overlap with art exhibitions.
Okay, so the different types of art are more entangled than in other countries. All right, so thank you very much. Aya, Youmna,
Thank you.
Panos, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.